in her plan, what she had in mind was the best uh, witness, alibi, excuse, is a house detective or a priest or your local school teacher or someone with real credibility to stand there and prove where you were when certain events took place so that they could go to court and say, I have credibility to say that Courtney was with me when X, Y, and Z event occurred. And that's what she was thinking at the time because she told me so. Plus that, I got to put this in the very front part of this. She spent months studying books on let's get even, let's get revenge type revenge books. You know those revenge books you can buy?
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole series. I don't remember the name of the guy, but there's a lot of books out there on how to take revenge, how to write bad love notes, how to get people in trouble, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and how to rob people without them knowing it and that kind of stuff. And the books are out there on the internet. You can buy them. She read every one of them, and she used to bring them to home and leave them at our house. So I was able to read some of them, and I got the suspicion of what is Courtney reading these things for? She had a bug up her that under her saddle about getting revenge. She had hate in her heart, and when I tried to, I came back. Yeah, I came back from Europe, and I got in contact with her stepfather, Frank Rodriguez. And Frank said, Courtney wants to see you. I said, oh, wow, I didn't even know where she was. And this was in, 76 or so. So she wrote me a letter, and she said, you asked me a lot. I still have all the questions are in my book, correspondence there. She asked me a lot of questions. Oh, do you still have the Jaguar, which was really a Rover TC 2000, and so forth. How are you doing? Do you still have the same girlfriend? I like, real teeny bopper stuff, on an inventory. But one of the things she said right from the get-go she wanted to do was start an all-girl band. And she had the parameters of the band laid out on paper, and sketching who was playing what part and who would play what instrument, what kind of clothes they would wear. And I still have them. I have those at home. Those drawings, I have them. They must be valuable. I don't know. But anyway, I always knew that she wanted to be a rock star from the very beginning. Ever since Mom and Dad broke up, because see, Mom broke up with the second husband too. And so Courtney had a broken heart from losing me and then losing Frank too. And it's very strange. So Frank wrote me and said, Hank, Courtney wants to see you. Do you want to go up and see her? I said, yeah. And then she wrote me a letter, and I thought she said she was from her, it was on a letterhead. And it turned out the letterhead was Juvenile Hall. I said, well, Frank didn't say she was in juvie. So I was surprised to find out she was in juvie. They had actually put her in juvie because she was beyond parental control. Well, parental control for those people was, oh, you didn't do the dishes. I'm going, oh, come on. So I got a buddy of mine he had a private plane, fly me up to Salem, and I went and saw her. And I got in there, and what I wanted to do was my mom to meet her, and my mom had never met her. So I got in to talk to her, and it was pretty heartwarming. I took some pictures, and I said, gee, this is terrible. I could have raised her better than throwing her in here. I would have spoiled her, but I wouldn't have raised her like this. I wouldn't have thrown her away. like so much trash, just get rid of her. And that's what sort of hurt me is after all the court cases we went through and the divorce, forcing me to give up custody because they had the money in her name. There was a couple of $1 million. In those days, was a lot of money that had been transferred to Courtney's name to avoid income taxes. And they were afraid that I was going to go after the money. I didn't even know that it was in her name until later. So, to make a long story short, Courtney wrote the letter and said, "Can you come up and see me?" The next day I went down and sent her a dozen red roses. She wanted to know what, she wanted a Bad Girls album, that kind of stuff. I sent her all that. And then she said, "Can you come and see me?" And I went up. Before I did, I contacted Salem, Oregon. I contacted Salem, Oregon, and they said, "Hey, you can come and see her, sure." I said, "What's it going to take to get a visit off campus? Take her off, bring her home for a week or two, He said, "Well, that's going to require some, a little bit more." So I went through that whole procedure and got permission to take her out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously they checked me out, and obviously my so-called, quote, criminal record, which consisted of some weed, and I think I had one bounce check or something like that, I don't remember, was not going to stop me from visiting her. When we got to, it was a pretty good visit. Went up there and it was a pretty good visit. And I got the impression that this poor thing was shoved around quite a bit from pillar to post from a mother who really didn't care much about me or her. And I had a mother, my mother, her grandmother, was willing to take her in, and did actually. So I could have arranged and tried to arrange to get Courtney to go and live with my mom for a while. Because of the brother, I had a bunch of brothers and a bunch of half brothers and all kinds of stuff. And they were kind of well off. He was a highway contractor, so he had a little bit of money. So they could have taken care of her. She was still in high school. They could have got her in high school and everything. I was going to set her up and get her back down with our family. And it worked out for a little while, but she actually did go live with them for a while later. But it was a very sad, tragic situation, man, because Linda Rodriguez, the mother, the biological mother, didn't have the slightest concern, or at least she didn't show it, for Courtney's overall well-being. Not really. I mean, she had compassion for people, but I don't think she gave much for Courtney. She put Courtney in the street. What she did was she just kicked Courtney out.
Something that I was kind of curious about is remember reading in your book that Linda had subjected Courtney to some Stanford experiments.
I don't know if they were Stanford per se, but there was some kind of Oregon State bunch too, don't forget. I mean, Oregon is Oregon Box, Reich, reparenting crap. They had this thing about reparenting. What's that? And Reichian psychology,
Wilhelm Reich.
Wilhelm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, And they put her, they were saying that Courtney was a bad kid, but the truth is they were doing tarot readings, fire walking, Hatha yoga, Raja yoga, Lira yoga, running on no food, that kind of stuff. All kinds of. Oregon was Portland. It was, back in the day. They were just as bad as the Haight-Ashbury. I mean, wasn't nothing different about it, except it was Oregon. You know what I mean? And they were cuckoo kiki, And Linda was as much into it as the rest of them. And I don't know what they were exposing her to, but it was, they gave her pills. They gave her Tuinal, which is the red and the blue and the red pill, sleeping pill. Tuinal. It's a hypnotic truth serum type of thing. Seconal, Tuinal, and
How young was Courtney at that time?
well, she was just in juvie, so she would have been or before she went into juvie, 14, between 12 and 14. I don't know exactly, 13.
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to get her to erase me from her mind. And I found out much later that the reason they were doing that wasn't because they thought I was evil. They thought I was after their money. And at the time, I didn't even know they had the money. She was in real estate. She was setting up her own psychological practice, couples counseling, all kinds of stuff. And I don't blame her for that. But I mean, to take it that far, to ruin a child just because she's genetically linked to some idiot like me, you know. Well, I married the wrong guy and he was abusive, so I don't want to have anything to do with him, and I don't want my daughter to have anything to do. You know, it's kind of it was sort of a sassy, very sassy, in a bad way. And Linda had a bunch of girlfriends, sort of a cadre of chicks from San Francisco, from Catholic school, girls' Catholic school, Judy Carroll, and I know all their names. They're in the book, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
And all those girls told her, "Hey, Linda, you don't want to have Hank around anymore. Don't let Hank come around anymore. Hank's a bad guy, and Hank cheated on you." You know, and all this stuff, which I did, but not bad. I mean, I just had one little flirtation. But Hank gave you LSD. Hank gave Courtney LSD. Hank did this to Courtney and all that stuff. None of that happened. None of it actually happened. I never gave Courtney LSD. And I took a lie detector test. I paid money to get a lie detector test. Polygraph, legitimate CIA guy, polygraph that said I did not give her any drugs. Anyway, that in the long run, it turned out to be the thing that got Courtney and I back together again was my ability to respond to Courtney's requests for records. She wanted to Donna, Bad Girls album. Donna, what was Donna? Bad Girls. You know that record? The album?
Yeah, it's Escape Me Too.
Bad Girls. Anyway, I sent that to her, and I got up there, and I took her out on a afternoon vacation, and took her around Oregon, and she loved it, and took her back, and I made an arrangement to get her to come home to visit me back in Sausalito. At the time, I was living on a very nice houseboat in Sausalito. Well, if you tell people in Oregon that you're living on a houseboat, it doesn't go very far. If you tell them you're living on a ranch house on a hill, an 18-room mansion, that goes a long way, but not a houseboat. But to me, Mr. Cool, I thought living on a houseboat in Sausalito, Campus Marina, Gate 6, man, that was like bohemian paradise, you know? And as a matter of fact, Alan Watts lived about 2 boats down from me. So
Wild.
it was wild, man. It was really wild.
I would still think that would be prime real estate today to be on a houseboat, not Sausalito.
Sausalito.
Yeah.
I mean, there's houseboats in Oregon, there's houseboats in Washington.
Right.
But when you say you live in Sausalito on a houseboat, and then you show a picture of this gorgeous houseboat, I mean, it looks like a real house. And right on the bay. I mean, I just thought that was the coolest thing for me. And I said, I'm going to take my daughter to a house. I got shot down for that.
Is that what contributed to these girls' case against you?
Yeah, that's another thing. One of them more. I also think that there's a sociological thing amongst those people, that class of society. Any houseboat anywhere is considered declassé. If you pretend, or if you try to be, or if you identify as a bohemian, as a beatnik, you know, as a hippie, as anything like that, or a rich hippie, especially a rock and roll rich hippie, like I am, you know, that's considered really ugly to those people. I was thinking, hey, this is cool. This is my lifestyle. This is what I want to be, not them. So we had a conflict of values right away. So,
What did Courtney think of the experience?
oh,
herself,
she was
though?
pretty impressed
Yeah, I
with it
think
all.
so.
You know, she liked my friends. She got along really well. I actually, by the time I got Courtney to live with me, I lived at the end of the pier in Larkspur, in view of San Quentin, right over there. And you had to walk down a long pier to get to this place. And it was a very nice place. It cost me $1,000 a month in those days.
Why do you think that Courtney wouldn't appreciate your relationship with her as much? Is it just the tough love?
No, no, it was, no, there was never any tough love. I never did any tough love. I wasn't the tough love person. Linda was a tough love person.
I see.
Heck no, I spoiled the hell out of her from the beginning. Anytime she wanted anything, I just took care of her. Linda hated me catering to the baby. Little baby. Don't change her diaper. She's going to have to learn to not poop her pants. What? That's the kind of thing. It was strict Jesuit Catholic processing. You know? I mean, they smoked around her. The babysitter blew smoke in her face. They drank a lot. And they were San Franciscan Italians. They were good people. I'm not saying they were bad people, but their values were spare the rod, spoil the child, and make sure you screw their minds up as much as possible.
If you were the one spoiling Courtney, why wouldn't she like you? You would think that she would like you more.
Because they brainwashed her immediately after they got her. They started saying, "Oh, you don't want to talk to Hank." She's even said it in public herself. She was told that I was dead. Number one. But before that, even they said, "Hank's a bad guy. You don't want to know about your dad," and so forth and so on. They just didn't want her around me. But the real motive under all of it was they thought I had some claim to the money. Now, it turns out, I looked into it recently. The lawyers that were running the adoption, or it wasn't really an adoption, it was a takeaway, they were Catholics too, and they were in the same church, same unit, and they were telling Linda and Jack Reese and Luella Reese, you have to understand, Ferrari and Reese is a large optician on Montgomery Street in San Francisco, and they had lots and lots of big-time eyeglass customers. And they had lawyers coming out their ears, you know, and the lawyers told them that if they didn't do something about me in the long run when the child was of age, I could make a claim against the money because the child was in their name, because they were using the child as a tax dodge. And so I didn't even know that. I didn't even consider it. So when I finally got a chance to see Courtney, it sent a lightning bolt through the whole family.
But so Courtney it seems like she had these experiences with you about you spoiling her, and that was upstaged with what other people said.
Yeah, well,
but at the same time, you were the one that introduced her to the money.
Well, that's only because I had my own money by that time. I didn't introduce her to her money.
I thought you introduced her to her money.
I told her about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I told her that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that.
Right, that's what you wrote.
But she knew I had money too. See, so she said, "Oh, I'm pretty good," you know, because she at that time she was actually almost ruined.
Mhm.
I mean, they threw her in juvie. What can I say? And then you kind of turned her into a whore, and there was all kinds of street kids. She was beat up by a bunch of punks in Oregon a couple of times, you know. And she had a rough life. I mean, my kid had a rough life. She didn't have. She'd been much better off with me, or my wife, or whoever I was with, or my mother and my family. Nah, they weren't going to let that happen, man. And I couldn't figure out. Now, I'm not 100% sure it's always because of the money. It might have just been probably just vindictive. Just, I'm not going to let Courtney go with Hank, you know. Well, that's ridiculous type of thing, you know. It could have been bad, more than the money. But there was a lot of money floating around, a lot of money. In that era, to have $2.5 or $3 million in trust for a 5-year-old child or a 3-year-old child would be a lot of money in those days. It's a lot of money now, but in those days it was a lot of money, you know. And you could buy a lot of money. You could buy a lot of stuff for a lot of houses, a lot of buildings, a lot of stock for $2-3 million in those days.
But as far as you're aware, the only reason Courtney didn't like you, or that friction just came from what other people around her was saying, kind of like what people around Linda was saying.
Yeah, but Courtney went to the University bookstore, the Bohemian bookstore, you know, in Springfield, you know, the Kenkizi bookstore, right? And she goes in there, and Celestial Arts, my publisher at the time, put out this nice poster with a Kelly eyeball on it. Flying eyeball.
Yeah.
Was the 82 edition.
Mm-hmm.
And she took a look. She knew my name. She took a look and she said, "That's my dad!" She went around the store screaming, "That's my dad!" And I found out about that because the guy at the bookstore was an old friend of mine. She just went around the store screaming, "That's my dad." Do you? And she went up to him and she said, "Do you know him?" She said, "Yeah, I do know you. I know Hank." And guy from San Mateo. And she said, he said, you know, he just lives in Marin County. He lives in Fairfax, or Sausalito. He thought I was Fairfax. I was Sausalito by that time, but I was still Marin. And she said, "He's alive?" And I said, well, later when I found out that he said that to me, I said, "Did somebody tell you I was dead?" She said, "Yeah, Mom said you were dead." Ooh. I didn't feel good about that. I didn't want to get revenge or anything, but I felt, why would they do that? You know, trying to cut her from looking for me. So they were afraid of me for some reason. They were afraid I think it's because they thought I was going to make a claim. So I did some research and I found out that their lawyers told them that I had a claim to some of the money. I didn't know I had any claim to any money. I didn't know. But apparently their lawyers told them I could have made trouble. I had money of my own at the time. I wasn't that real. So that was that story. So, you know, like a dumb, stupid person. As soon as I got control of the situation and got her back down to the Bay Area, got her to San Francisco, took her in to see, well, I was standing in line at a ice cream place, and this woman comes up to me and says, "Are you Hank Harrison?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Are you Courtney Love's father?" I said, "Yeah." "Do you know Courtney?" And she says, "Yes, I do. I'm her financial counselor." "What?" She said, and she happened to be a deadhead. She knew me because of my dead books. So I said, "What's the deal?" I said, "Courtney right now is up in Oregon in Juvenile Hall." She says, "Well, when you get a chance, you bring her down and introduce her, because I want to talk to her." And she gave me her card, Wells Fargo Bank. Trust, Montgomery Street, number 1 Montgomery. Okay, I didn't know what the implications were going to be, but got her on the plane, brought her down, got her settled in Sausalito with me at the hospital, drove over to Frisco, got into the bank, sat in a marble bench. She went in with her. I got up to go in with them, and she, oh, you can't come in, you can't come in. I said, oh, okay. So I went back and sat down on the bench. About half an hour later, she came out like this. Somebody just punched her in the face. I'm going, what's the matter, Courtney? She says, no, I'm a millionaire. I really am a millionaire. I says, yeah, everybody knows that. No, Mom said I didn't have any money. Mom said all the money was gone. Not only did she say I was dead, they told her all the money was gone. The money still isn't gone. That money went on forever, dude. I mean, right now, if you went down there, you'd see there'd be a couple of $1 million floating around there. They're wealthy people.
Considering all like the lies and the tumultuous childhood that Courtney has had, do you have any concerns with the way Frances is being raised?
Actually, the funny side of that is, yes, a little bit, but Kurt's, you have to remember there's another part of the formula. That's the Cobain family. Now, Kurt had a sister named Kim. Kim is highly educated. She's gay, and she's got a pizza bar somewhere up in Olympia. Yeah, and which Kurt gave her some money to get that going. And the mother they loved Courtney, and the mother was impressed by Courtney's rock and roll, bling bling. They were impressed by that. But that didn't ruin anything. Kim took Courtney sort of under her wing and told Courtney what was going on right then and there. So Courtney bought her a house, and they bought in Olympia.
What do you mean that Kim told Courtney what was going on?
With me and with them and the family and
I see.
everything else, So, what was your original question again?
Was if you had any concerns about Frances?
No, and so Courtney and them agreed to raise Frances properly. So there was a little bit of crap going on. Courtney took her. When the thing I objected to one time was Frances had a birthday, a 16th birthday, and they did a devil worship birthday party for her. It was some kind of black arts.
Like a ritual?
No, it wasn't. No, it was just kind of a fake party, rock party, a music party with I don't know, Alan, several alternative black arts people, Halloween people, But I don't think that hurt her. I don't think it killed her. Somebody got smart because they sent her, first of all, when Kurt died, he left the baby the most money, at least a big chunk. And that money went to pay for any college anywhere. And Kim and the mother, Kurt's mother, managed to make sure she went to a beautiful university. And they got her back east. She went to school, and she learned a lot. And she learned, I don't know what she majored in, but it was plenty good. She got a high education, it wasn't Bryn Mawr, but it was, I forget which place she went back east, but it was it was either one of the schools related to the Seven Sisters. Forget, it was really tweedy, Ivy League type school. And she went there, and she had a boyfriend, and then he went with her. One of the things they did was they got her good shrinks. They got her good psychologists. They saw, in my opinion, they saw she was getting screwed up. So they intervened, and got a real good intervention going indirectly to help her out. That's what I think happened. That's why she's not screwed up. Well, I always thought Tom was a little off the wall from the very beginning when I first met him. Tom had me down to L.A. to meet him, and he had people from the various gossip newspapers interview me and stuff. But Tom was a big aficionado of voice lie detecting, where you instead of putting the lie detector on like that, you could read the person's voice and articulation, and you could tell if he or she was lying by inflection and stuff. I forget what they call that, but there's a whole school of truth evaluation based on that. And he had me read by 2 or 3 experts. And it must have really frustrated me because I was determined to tell the truth to everything, because I knew I was under the microscope. And he told me this right out. He says, "You're not a beatnik, you're a criminal." He told me I was a criminal. I said, well, one of the things Courtney did was have him check me out, and one of the things he found out is I have a criminal record. Marijuana, a couple of bounce checks, stuff like that. Well, as far as Tom Grant is concerned, he's a Puritan. So, okay, I smoked a joint. I sold some weed. What do you know? I stole a car. In Hayward, I stole a truck full of pies once when I was 60. And, I mean, then I also, and by the way, I managed a great dead. And the guy says, "That's the worst offense of all. You managed rock bands. Which ones did you manage? Big Brother and the Holding Company? Grateful Dead? Any of that ring a bell?" Of course, because by that time, I had become kind of a rich beatnik. I'm kind of, I wouldn't call it royalty, but I'm kind of from the Haight-Ashbury, and I was sort of well off at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were making it, as it were, in the Haight-Ashbury, you were considered pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you have a daughter who's a rock star too, that makes you even cooler. And, if you're Kurt Cobain's father-in-law, that makes you cooler. You're cooler yet. So, what the heck is this whole scrutiny about me being an ass, having a criminal record? Oh, acid hippie, criminal record, has enough money to live in a really nice house, drives a Mercedes. Oh my God, terrible. Why is that terrible? Went to San Francisco State. Why is that terrible? Put himself through San Francisco State with A's and B's, B plus average. Got scholarships, lots of scholarships, grants. Oh, you can't do that. That's, they just didn't like me because of my lifestyle, man. That's what it really boiled down to. And Tom was right on the same wavelength, you're a rich hippie? No way, dude. It was just my lifestyle was not at all favorable to his way of looking at things. And, I had to tell all of Courtney's friends, don't go near Tom Grant, man. He's a cop. And if you want to get prejudiced, if you're a hippie or a little beatnik or a black guy or something like that, and you want to get prejudiced, it's cops. You know what I mean? See, there were 2 guys up in Canada, Ian Halpern and Max Walls. They wrote a couple of books, about the Cobain case. And Tom Grant adopted those 2 guys. And they had me go on a lecture tour to Canada with them. And the whole time I was on a lecture tour, they were spying on me and watching me and making sure I said the right thing and tried. So I knew Tom had that always had his little devices. They would plug into the cigarette lighter of your car. And while we were on the road in Canada, they were monitoring what we were saying in the car. So I started thinking, what's going on here? Is this a CIA deal? Even I thought, oh, CIA's tracking us. What's going on here? Well, that wasn't the case, but it was Tom doing it all. And so they had it all set up to sort of set up to fail, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I did get the lecture finished, and we did go on tour. And Tom wasn't on the tour with us, but I'm sure he was listening to everything we said.
Callie DeWitt was on Geffen's payroll
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole time.
I don't know about the whole time, but a lot of it. A lot of it.
Why? Why do you think he was on?
Well, Courtney got him a job working for Geffen as some kind of an R&D guy.
Yeah.
What do you want to know? I mean,
I guess I'm kind of just my connection with that is I was kind of curious to know if you had suspected, as some people do online, of Callie's involvement.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, of course. First of all, in my book, I make it really clear. There's a chapter which you should read if you haven't. It's called Callie's Golden Parachute. In Silicon Valley, when you get a golden parachute, it's when they kick you out with big money. You know, when you quit or get fired with big money. So Callie got a golden parachute when he left Courtney. The golden parachute consisted of a couple of years' work with Geffen, and I think Geffen went along with it. I don't know why, but he took the recommend. I think what happened was Courtney called up David and said, "Look, David, this guy Callie's a good guy. Why don't you give him a job?" And I think, I'm not sure that it's speculation, but I think he hired Callie, and Callie did some work, quote unquote, for David Geffen, indirectly with Courtney. There's a couple of other cases of that. Courtney's girlfriend, one of Courtney's girlfriends, was a painter. She was a good painter, but she wasn't a knock. I forget what's the name. I forget.
I forgot too, but I remember the chapter that you told me to read.
The chapter is called
Paint
Payoff at the Paint Factory. First of all, the first part of the chapter that I wrote is about how the art world functions and how you get kickbacks and how you get, certain progressions through the art publicists mostly. It's all through publicity. And I gave step-by-step detail what happens when you sell a painting, why you sell a painting, they know the rich people that are buying these paintings. People buy paintings all the time, what galleries to go to, how to get into the gallery shows, and how to get money from the gallery shows.
There's actually a story recently in the news that someone had paid several $100,000 for literally a banana nailed to a wall.
And the guy ate it.
I don't remember if the guy ate it, but it wouldn't last. I mean, but it gives legitimacy to what you were saying in that chapter.
It was on TV too, yeah. It was a show. Yep, banana wall, yeah.
Both that chapter and the Callie chapter that you mentioned weren't in the book that I had found online and was able to download. No, because you got an early
version of the book that it was just. I mean, I have books right here.
Right.
That I could give you. Did you ever get around to reading the final stuff?
I read the Paint Factory, and I read I've been reading a couple of random chapters.
What do you think of the Paint Factory? It's a written document.
I have to admit that there are many of the chapters that I read in your book, I come to find out not just what I was looking for, but a couple of extra, really enlightening things that I never would have imagined. For instance, like how the art world functions. And
well, that's what I do. It's just my writing style. I write in layers. So you'll have the story layer, and then above here you'll have, oh, and by the way, I'm going to tell you how the artwork functions.
Yeah.
And that's an old David Crosby. David Crosby taught me that. That's what he David Crosby does in his music. Beloved wife Trina is become a writer, and she's terrific. She's knee melting terrific. How the hell did she? Not from living with me, I hope. But I don't know. She wrote a book called Never Miss Nellie, and it's about a woman who's a sergeant in the Marines in Afghanistan, and she's a sniper, and she developed her own corps of horseback snipers in Afghanistan. Scared the crap out of the Taliban because they're on horseback, and they're women, and they're shooting. Very odd. And Never Miss Nellie's the name of the gun. She developed this rifle, and she gets this guy. She's supposed to hit this target, who's a Taliban guy, about 2,500 meters across the valley. And they wait for the guy to fire up a cigarette outside his house. They shoot him in the butt, in the cigarette butt. Blow his head off. That's who I'm gonna. Usually, I'm never gonna leave her. I cannot leave her because she'll kill me too. No, she's fine. And Never Miss Nellie. It's just the same thing she does. She goes along and she tells you what it's like to be a woman sniper in the Army or in the Marines in Afghanistan. But she's also telling the story of the sniping episodes, the various missions. Very, very interesting book. I hope the hell the book comes out soon. So I don't know if she learned that from me or Moby Dick or what, but good, all good. Oh, I know. I learned it from a guy named Nelson Algren in Chicago. Nelson Algren wrote The Man with a Golden Arm. You ever heard of that? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you ought to get that because
Nelson... I don't read much fiction, honestly.
Oh, how about the Frank Sinatra movie, Frankie Machine, The Man with the Golden Arm? A movie. It's made into a movie.
Okay.
Frank Sinatra as a drummer. That's the guy that taught me how to do that. Then I went over to England and studied with a woman named Frances Yates. Now, Dame Yates was at the Warburg Institute, and she took me on. She thought I was a cool guy. I went to see her, and she said, you better stay here. She got me into school over there for a couple of semesters. And I studied with her. And one of the things she taught me was you want to make sure that you're writing nonfiction, but you also want to make sure you've got the brilliance of fiction in there. So you start out with fiction, and you put the fictional elements in there. Then I also had the Kerouac background, and I also had the various, Nelson Algren's a more beatnik too, backgrounds into my blend. So it's woven like an old shirt, like an old sweater.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The interesting thing in this particular book, Love Kills, the assassination of Kurt Cobain, is an honor book to Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
I would never make a mistake of screwing up or bragging or doing anything like that would go against Kurt's reputation or his. I adored the guy. I never met him, but I adored him, you know. And I saw where he struggled to make a change in his life and also in how many people he affected, how many people he actually, with his music, changed and gave him uplifting. I saw a video of the show Nirvana did, one of them in France, and literally the crowd was illuminated. I mean, they were, whoa, you know? And I only saw that with the Dead a couple of times in the early days. And Nirvana was, you know, that was, and I said, my daughter married this guy, you know? I was pretty impressed, man. So I didn't want to interfere with their life or screw up my granddaughter's life or interfere with Kurt. But I thought she'd do me the courtesy of introducing me to Kurt, and she didn't want me to have anything to do with him. And I said, well, wait a minute. So I realized that there must be something going on here. I started getting suspicious. Before Kurt died, I started getting kind of suspicious of what was going on. You know, and in the book I make it really clear that we now know that Courtney is making plans to kill herself, a rock star, years before she met Kurt. Some poor bastard was going to get it, and it was going to be from Courtney. And we knew that when she married him before anything else. We knew, I said, this poor bastard's in trouble, whoever it is. And people get mad at me even today. Say, well, how could you say that about your daughter? It's true. It's what happened, man. Face the facts. This is what happened. My kid got screwed up, and she grew up to be kind of a witch. You know, I'm not putting her down. I'm just saying, hey, you know, witches are necessary too, I guess.
Well,
in the world.
I guess with any, I mean, if you put us in the context of that we're all magicians, literally creating this reality from our imagination, it comes down to whether or not we're going to use our powers to benefit others or for benefit ourselves.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, we knew that, but what's the benefit of knocking off a dude, you know, a beautiful rock star like that guy? I mean, Cobain was such a sweetie pie. Nothing wrong with him. He was a junkie, but, you know, I didn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, he was just a wonderful guy. And you knew it from his music. He's a good-looking guy. And he didn't overspend his money. He took care of his money and took care of his family. He's a nice guy. Just a generally down-the-street nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, she did well. You know? And then when he died, I said, oh, Christ. My wife came up to me and said, she finally did it, and I ain't. You know, my wife knew that Courtney was capable of that more than I was. I was in denial about that. We knew, because Courtney would go around the house saying, you know, I'm going to kill myself a rock star someday. She would say stuff like that around the house. And she used to go to a place called the Vats in San Francisco. It was an old Ham's brewery.
Yeah, near the Greyhound station.
Yeah, and they had all kinds of concerts down in there. And that's where she'd get the dope. And, you know, she met Kat and Jellin up in Oregon. She brought her down with her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Babes in Toyland.
Yeah.
So, Babes in Toyland used to rehearse in our basement. Kat, I loved Kat. Kat was is still to this day a terrific person.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add? I mean, just for the...
No, I mean, the other, you asked me about Tom Grant.
Yeah, well, if you want to...
I never even told you about Tom Grant.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Grant spent his whole life, from that day on, tracking me down after the Canadian episode.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to make my life pretty miserable. He didn't do anything to destroy me, per se. But if I were ever going to try to get a book out, it wasn't going to be with his cooperation, that's for sure. And I always wondered why Courtney hired him and kept him on after Kurt died. Still don't know the total answer on that. If you even hint that Grant had anything to do or anything to ignore about Kurt's death, Grant will come and sue you. Grant will get mad at you, you know, Grant. And you don't want Tom Grant on your case. And it sort of made my life kind of a ruination in a way. Tom Grant spent a lot of time trying to screw me up, man, career-wise. And I used to ask him questions. He would come around and say things to the media and feed the media stuff about me that was just not true. Or if it was true, it was, who cared? You know, blah, blah, who cared? But Grant was really upset about my criminal record. He couldn't get it out of his crawl. And Grant, the one last thing I knew, didn't know he was sick. I did not know until recently that he was ill. And I still don't know if he is or what it was. But I have a buddy of mine who knows a buddy of his, and they told me online. But Grant was a bodyguard for Paula Jones from the Clinton days, and all this other stuff came to me from people who knew Grant, especially Ian Halpern and Max Walsh, knew Grant. And they said he was a right-winger, real strong Republican, real conservative, very, very conservative guy. I won't use the N-word, but, you know, racist, somewhat, I guess.
Would you describe him as arrogant, or have heard him speak of himself as in the third person?
I have. Frightening. I've heard him talk about, you won't talk about Tom Grant that way, you know, type of thing. Use his name in retrospect and stuff like that. A bit off. But I always liked him because he was such a strong defender of my daughter, you know, for that time. Well, then she hired him to keep on working for her after Kurt died. And one of the things she gave him to do was track me again. And boy, they were afraid of me. You see, because Courtney was afraid. She knew I used to be a crisis intervention counselor. Now, I don't know if you know what crisis intervention is, but if you see somebody that's in real dire crisis, and your obligation is to intervene, then your obligation is to lay hands on and grab and snatch. Put them in a truck and take them to a hotel or a hospital or someplace. Fix them. No fucking around. And that's the only way you get the attention of these people. If you're trying to help them, you're the boss, not them. And you got to do it. You don't hit them or beat them up or anything, but you can't let them have any heroin. You know what I mean? You can't let them drink. If it's a booze thing, you can't let them have any booze right in front of you. You got to, get them under control right away. And I knew how to do that, and I've been trained to do that with. There's a guy in San Francisco named Joel Fort, and he started a thing called Fort Help, and there's several other groups like that, and they were designed to do interventions. And I studied with them. So.
You had mentioned to me that you had regretted not
grabbing
Kurt.
Do
you ever wish you'd have grabbed Courtney?
I did grab Courtney more than once. It didn't work. I'm a failure there, and I admit that.
Any stories with that, or?
Well, Courtney would just go along and fake it. Go along. Courtney's a pure sociopath. It runs in our family, by the way. I'm not saying I'm not either. But you got to work. If you're a sociopath and you know it, and it gives you trouble, you better get working on it. And I think I have, for me. But, I didn't do anything evil.
You would, you've been described online as a admitted sociopath.
Yeah, I do.
Do you feel like, but at the same time you said that you've tried to write a book without bias.
Yeah.
Do you where have you found yourself trying to set that aside?
When I was younger, I was a juvenile delinquent. I stole cars. I ran away a lot. I went into my dad's pockets and stole money out of my dad's, stuff. My dad was an alcoholic. My dad went to the 1936 Berlin Olympics. My uncle invented the talking baby, though. There's so many savants in my family not counting Courtney, before Courtney, my grandfather on my mother's side was a savant. I mean, a real savant. He knew stuff. John David Cook, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was raised by those people, man. So when I grew up, I got the idea. And my dad was an alcoholic, and my dad also got I don't know what you call it, but he was in the Army, and he did stuff like he didn't want to kill Germans. They were going to send him to Germany, so he went to Camp Landing, Florida, and he was doing infiltration training, and he blew his shoulder up on purpose so he wouldn't have to go to Europe to kill Germans. That's a sociopathic trait. And I think it's genetic. I think part of it is genetic, man. I can't prove it, but they say some of it is, mad soldier syndrome, So I guess I inherited that, and I guess I passed some of that on to Courtney, genetically, as well as the IQ. Her IQ is higher than mine, way higher, because her mom has a higher IQ. But I have about a 137 or something, but I have something that the mom's side doesn't have. I have a thing called photographic memory. I didn't invent it. It's just something you get. It's a gift, or not. It could be a curse. You remember stuff. You just remember stuff. Not verbatim on paper like some, but like whole, huge dissertations on galactic evolution, for example. One lecture, you hear it. 5 years later, you can recite the whole lecture almost verbatim, and it's in there. Or how Ford invented the assembly line. All the little details to it. You just remember it all. I don't know. I didn't want to. I didn't ask for it. It's just I got it. Well, I passed that on to Courtney. I'm pretty sure because I see it in her. Some of the stuff she pulls off has to be based on some of the photo memory. She can remember stuff that she told the cops, or she can remember stuff that she told A, B, or C 10 years ago, verbatim. She remembers every detail of stuff. And I told her about it when she was a young kid. I told her, I said, you probably have my photographic memory. My mom told her also, she lived with my mom for a while. She says, you have Hank's memory. You got it from your uncle. My uncle invented the talking baby doll, but he was also a great inventor. He invented all kinds of stuff. So he had that memory, you see. And that's, when all this stuff was happening, I recognized that's what was happening. That was coming out. And I said, oh boy, here we go. Nobody's going to believe me anyway, man. People don't believe that stuff. Sounds like science fiction. Especially when a person who has that kind of thing realizes it. Or if you're a sociopath and you sort of realize it and use it for kind of flaky reasons, like getting more money, or not paying income tax, or whatever you do.
Whatever we use our powers for.
Yeah. So I tried to go into Zen Buddhism and other things, ethical things, to try to assuage against the damages that you can do with your sociopathy. And I tried to calm myself down and get a marry well. I've been with the same woman 45 years.
That's commendable, especially
Yeah.
these days when it's
So
so hard to stay together just 1 year.
So now they're saying, oh, she's a sociopath too. Well, it takes one to know one. No, Courtney called her goat lady because we had goats with the horses.
considering you've had such a pretty interesting life with the dead and with your daughter and the Kurt Cobain thing, and even just your intervention work as well,
Yeah.
what do you want to be most remembered for?
My writing.
Your books?
Yeah.
Well,
Not the books per se, the writing.
it's the writing.
It's different. So what I did was I took Dame Frances Yates from the Warburg Institute and Kerouac and those people and mixed them with Nelson Algren and the Bohemian subculture. We were talking on the phone the other night, you and I, about Burroughs, William S. Burroughs, and royalty, Bohemian royalty, and Burroughs knew Kurt Cobain was Bohemian royalty, and he actually got Kurt to make a record called "A Priest They Called Him." You heard of that record?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Burroughs pointed out, I think to Kurt at least, that he was the inheritor of Bohemian royalty. Well, if Burroughs is right, and Burroughs is Bohemian royalty, beatnik, rich beatnik royalty, if Burroughs is Bohemian royalty, and Kurt is Bohemian royalty, and Courtney is Bohemian royalty, what is my granddaughter? You see what I mean? So I don't want to sound too arrogant or snotty or snooty, but I mean, let's face it, man, it's coincidental, it happens. Luck is on your side. And I knew who I was when I was younger. I knew I had a roommate who eventually became the bass player for the Grateful Dead when I was in junior college. And I knew that was the path we were on, you know. And I made friends with guys like David Crosby, Stills Nash Young. I loved David, man. He was Bohemian royalty. So when it takes one to know one, and you can see that there's this royal arrogance. It's an arrogant thing, true, but there's this kind of underground mentality that goes with that. And you just saw it when Courtney was a baby. Some of the stuff she did when she was a little baby was amazing. I could see it happening. You could see her pulling certain toys and doing things that were other babies didn't, other kids didn't do. So I raised her that way.
Is there something that you'd like to express to Courtney or to Frances? If you had the opportunity
I'd love to hang out with Frances. Courtney knows she didn't want to hang out with me, I'm pretty sure, It's kind of difficult, to think of that because it's
Would you be willing to forgive Courtney?
I don't forgive her. For what? For the
Wishing you death and...
wishing me dead? No, I don't worry about that. Killing Kurt or having a hand in seeing the Kurt or having some involvement in Kurt. Yeah, I did. I have already. I feel sorry for her. But what I refuse to do is feel guilty that I did it. One of the reasons I wrote the book the way I did was to make sure people knew that it wasn't me, man. I didn't make her so bad. I didn't do that. I'd be writing against form, wouldn't I?
Sorry.
That's okay. I'd be writing against myself but I don't put myself in a position where I can forgive people. I'm not Jesus of Nazareth. I'm not the Pope.
But you would be able to set aside past differences to be able
absolutely, sure enough. I have already, a lot.
What is it that you'd like to do or say to Frances if you had the opportunity to?
Well, I want her to hang out. I have information, but I also have techniques that just for her, that I want her to at least listen to. And I want to see if she has that memory thing and that giftedness. I'm sure she does. Everybody says she does. She's so good looking. The funny thing about Frances, I have a cousin who looks just like her, and people don't know that. A female cousin looks identical to her. So it must run in the family somewhere around the back door.
Mm-hmm.
They showed me a picture. This is your granddaughter. I went, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks just like Frances. They also, my cousin Frances Bean Cobain, looks exactly like one of my female cousins in Pittsburgh, in the area around Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
The Delancey clan. Harry George Delancey, Dolly Delancey, Francie Delancey, and Irish, that the dark eyebrows,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the facial thing. Gee whiz, she's got Kurt's eyes, somewhat, but she's got the Delancey look. Irish, Northern Ireland.
And kind of a random question that had just occurred to me, and it kind of ties with what I've researched a little bit about the CIA acting in San Francisco, doing LSD experiments,
Yeah.
even sometimes unknowingly on the public.
Yeah.
Had you had any run-in with some of those victims in your interventions?
It's hard to tell. I did do a lot of interventions, and people said that he dosed me, she dosed me, and there was a lot of dosing going on. What we used to say about that is never open your rosebud or your orchid in a rainstorm or a hailstorm. Never open your orchid in a hailstorm. You know, it's a bad thing to do. And so what I meant by that was, whoever was doing the dosing, if there was intervention, if there was dosing going on, and it was with the Grateful Dead, then the CIA involvement was with Owsley Stanley, who's dead now. You know who he was? The bear, the guy that invented that, the guy that developed all the acid.
Oh no, but I have heard of Ken Kesey and the turn in and drop out guy.
Tim Leary.
Tim Leary, yeah, their connections.
Well,
with,
if there was a CIA connection, it was Tim Leary for sure. If there was a sociopath, it was Tim Leary for sure. You think I was a sociopath? Check out old Tim. But there's a lot of Leary fans around too, and you don't want to see anything bad about him. But there's a guy named Sasha Shulgin, Alexander Shulgin. He was a chemist. He's the one that taught. Owsley was a guy named Augustus Owsley Stanley III. Have you heard him?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you should check that out.
Oh wait, Aldous Huxley?
No.
Sorry.
Owsley the bear.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Owsley the bear. Owsley Stanley the bear. He was the acid king. He was the guy that whipped up the acid. But actually, it wasn't. It was his girlfriend that did most of it. And she studied under Sasha Shulgin at Berkeley, on about the third or fourth floor of the chem building at Berkeley on campus. On campus, man. It's the only place they could make LSD from scratch, or they had the actual equipment, separator and special perfection, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they developed that over there, and then I don't know. I don't want to go into that. That's another interview. You're welcome to come and do that if you want, but that's not for today. But there's a whole bunch of information about that. And I don't want to snitch on anybody because, but I didn't like the idea of them dumping ass on everybody everywhere. I didn't like it. I thought it should be, LSD should have been used always as an adjuvant of psychiatric or psychology or a meditational science. It should never have, and they're using it now for that. They're using psilocybin as the go-to process for shell shock and army,
Oh yeah, PTSD.
PTSD.
Yeah, I've heard it even come up for depression treatment.
Yeah, but depression is part of PTSD too.
Right.
It works really well. Small doses of psilocybin. And those guys were into that in those days. And they knew that it would work.
Mm-hmm.
And Sasha Shulgin knew it would work. He had developed MMDA and MDA, that kind of thing, which was basically the active ingredient in nutmeg. Remember jailhouse drug nutmeg? Well, he extracted that out and made it. It turns out that it was, what do they call that stuff? STP. Remember STP and MMDA?
I only know STP is the motor oil and the band.
ecstasy.
Oh, ecstasy, yeah.
Ecstasy.
Mhm.
That's Shulgin developed all that.
No kidding.
That's all from one molecule. And then he just kept developing the molecule. We were that way. Knit 1, pearl 2, molecule 3.
One pearl two.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really?
Put it that way, working molecules.
Jesus Christ.
I would like to do another interview at some point. I hope I'm not keeping you from lunch. It's coming about lunchtime.
Oh, I don't care about
I don't care about lunch.
that. No, you brought my lunch.
Some soda and candy.